Hey guys, welcome back to the Philco 90 restoration project. We're going to start off this installment with some work on the cabinet. I already went ahead and removed the Utah speaker that had been added to this cabinet at some point in the distant past. It had some tears, it's been repaired, it's got some new tears. It's got kind of a bodged in output transformer. But most importantly, it is not the original speaker, and it's not compatible. Somebody modified the chassis that had been in this cabinet, so we're taking that out. Also took out the eye-tube mount. Also took out the grill cloth that had the eye-tube hole added to it. Eventually I'll patch that back up when I get some reproduction grill cloth. So now we're down to bare bones. Cabinet is made from some very thin wood that's been curved around the back, and my arch support is gone. At some point the glue must have failed and it got lost. Luckily I've got a reproduction made by the same gentleman that made the Philco Bakelite block and alignment tools, Steve Davis. He actually makes reproduction Philco cabinets. And he generously created this for me. And he left the tails, these end pieces, a little bit long. So we need to get this fitted in to the top, glued, clamped. But before we do that, we got to trim it. So there's a slight notch here. I need to get this worked in. I'll get some little clamps, get it all positioned right, kind of floating just above, and then see where I need to cut off those ends. The rest of it is quite mechanically sound. I think these glue blocks are all pretty secure. Alright, so I will get working on that. He also included some reproduction feet that he milled out of some brass and put little felt pads on. Apparently they are an exact replica of the originals. I just got felt pads. I'll be taking these off and installing these guys. I trimmed about 1/16 of an inch off of either end, and that did the trick. I'll need to clamp this around the perimeter, and you can see it's deformed a bit over the years. There's a little bit of separation on either side. It will give me a lot of relief to get that glued and secured in place to reinforce the cabinet. But now, of course, it's very jarring because it's new wood, whereas the rest has kind of oxidized and aged and is this nice dark color. So I am going to spray it with this camouflage non-reflective paint, kind of a brownish color, before I glue it in. We got a little bit of a break in the weather, and it's in the mid-60s today, so I think it's a really good time to do that. So I'm going to run out to the garage and paint it, and try not to get paint on the gluing surface. Maybe I'll put a piece of masking tape, painter's tape over that before I spray it. And I think this dries pretty quick. Dries to the touch in 20 minutes, and to handle in 1 hour. Good, because I would like to get this glued up tonight. It took just about every clamp I have, but hey, it is installed. The glue has set up overnight. It has so much more structural integrity now. That gives me a lot of peace of mind. I don't have to worry about this arch getting crushed anymore. A little bit of glue seeped out that I wasn't able to get off before it dried, and some of the paint chipped off, but I can touch that up. I think you can see now how well that camouflage brown matches this old wood. I mean, it's darn near perfect. So, I will just touch up that little bit there and scrape off some of the glue if I can. Otherwise, that is done. We're almost done with the chassis. The volume potentiometer should be showing up shortly. I also need to find some rubber shock mounts. You can see the remains of one of them up there and a little bit of one here. Round rubber donuts, basically. I was able to get some reproductions from renovated radios before they closed shop. So I'll be installing those. What do? They cushion the chassis So when the speaker vibrates, it doesn't transfer it directly to the radio, which can create feedback, microphonics. Basically, you want the radio to float a little bit, just like the tuning capacitor also floats on top of the chassis. You want to reduce vibrations. Also, you need to get this elevated a little bit so that the control shafts all line up with those holes. That's the good stuff. Nothing like a box of new parts. It's just arrived from Mauser. Packaging is a little different than what I've seen in the past. Came in a little plastic bag. On the side of that, it looks like the usual parts in individual plastic bags with the label on them. So what did I buy? I bought a bunch of caps for some upcoming electrostatic sets and to kind of replenish my supply. When I order stuff, I try to plan ahead and try to order like 10 of something to get the price break. Got a bunch of high voltage caps. Odd packaging on these. Let's take a look. Don't worry, there is stuff related to the Philco 90. Oh, let's see what they did. That's different. Bubble wrap. Interesting capacitors. They plug them into a little piece of styrofoam. VIMA 6000 volt caps. Again, for electrostatic TVs. But somewhere in here should be a new volume control and also a couple tip jacks for the signal generator. On the background, yeah, I already finished with the alignment, but I expect I'll be using that for other projects, so could make up a real set of probes for that. That's curious. So, same manufacturer, similar caps. This was on a block of styrofoam. These I just threw in a bag. Whatever. Power resistors. Here's some of the tip jacks. Also should be a bag of safety caps. Here's the pot. I do have to correct myself. I said back when we were trying to track down that problem with poor reception of the radio that they don't really call them safety caps in the engineering world. That's just sort of a nickname amongst restorers. But no, on Mauser Electronics, at least on the website, there is a whole category of capacitor called safety capacitors, and they have hundreds and hundreds of them. I went with my old standby. Here they are. Same type I used in the Philco 90, the 0.01 microfarad ceramic, both X and Y applications. They're like 90 cents each, so why not? Alright, so what I'm really curious about is to see what does about 18 bucks get you in the modern world. Volume control. Yeah, I'm used to working with old stuff. And even when I put in new controls, I'm putting in new old stock controls. But this is a newly manufactured potentiometer by an old-time manufacturer, CTS, in the same style and dimensions pretty much of the old stuff. So, let's see if I can get a knob off. Alright, so this, we will have to file this down just a little bit, but it's the same diameter as the old potentiometers, and it's a real solid metal shaft, 2 inches long. That's what I paid the extra money for, and it's got the same type of 3/8 inch, I think, bushing, and there's, I think I saw, yeah, there's a, you know, old-timey looking locking washer and nut on it. Similar type of construction. Now when I say old, I don't mean old like 1931 old, I mean like 40s, 50s old. It looks to be completely sealed though. So you couldn't spray any deoxide into this. It's got nice solder lugs. thick metal. Unusual, the back goes on and they crimp over the top, so if you had to, you could pry these open and get the back off to repair it. Unusual bit of metal sticking out in case there's a hole drilled into the chassis, so you can lock it on that so the control won't rotate, but the 90 does not have that. As far as rotating, it's stiff. Of course, the knob will give me more torque. It feels good though. It feels very solid, very well made. There's also no locking washer around here. I'm used to seeing that too. There'd be a locking washer going under like usually a brass shaft, and you could put a little oil on there. Alright, let us pop it in. Take out this guy I've got in there right now, which is a Type J pot, and get one with the right taper, and maybe finally we'll have a nice smooth volume control that gradually increases in volume instead of just jumping right up immediately. So let's get this one off. Just gonna tack this one in, so easy enough to get it out. Gotta remember, both the wires are the same color, so you gotta remember which is center tap and which goes to the arm. Come on. There we go. So this is the center tap. Okay. Put that one pointing downwards. And we can compare briefly. So these are both 2-watt pots, but decades apart in construction. Both sealed from the environment as well. Allen Bradley, CTS, both been around a long time. This one has a nice feel to it too, and it's definitely easier to rotate. So I wonder if this just has a little bit of a break-in period. Now I don't have that hole in the chassis for this to go onto, so I actually need to bend that over. But I'll do that after I see it actually works. I'm just gonna quickly, I know what I could do. Put a nut on either side. There we go. It's still in the bag. So that's an old trick to get a shaft control to be at the right distance sticking out of the chassis, is to put a nut on either side, because that's a pretty long threaded shaft. This one had it too. So you put a nut on the back side, adjust it for the right depth for the thickness of the metal on the chassis, put it through, and then tighten a nut on the other side. That way I don't have to bend over that piece of metal sticking out, because you never know. Someday I may want to use this control on something else, or I may want to drill a hole in this chassis so the control doesn't ever spin. What do I mean by spinning? I mean, if these nuts ever get a little bit loosened, somebody really cranks hard on the knob, the whole control could start twisting. We don't want that. Okay, so this is the center tap, or the wiper I should say, not the center tap. This is the outer arm. And the final terminal gets grounded. Alright, let's hook back up the other one. Yeah, so now I got to turn it on a really loud station, a strong station, about 20% to get to a good listening level, whereas before it was like 2% of the rotation and it'd be booming. Let's find a little bit more. Let's find a less strong station. That's all the way down.
Tell you more about that story. Look at WGN traffic on the Tollway at Disassembly vehicle with the right lane block.
Way better. So now I'm going like almost about halfway up on the control. to get to a good listening level.
Of Chicago's Four Corners Hustler Street Gang was convicted by a jury at the Dirksen Federal Building earlier today. Prosecutors say...
Alright, very good. So now I need to make sure I've got it mounted exactly as I want it to be. I think I need to loosen up that inner nut and make this control come out a little bit more. And then eyeball it against the other controls. Notably the tone control, because that isn't original, and find the length. When I get one chance to get this right, well, I mean, unless I cut it too long, but only one shot if I cut it too short, and then file it down. So how much do I need to file it down? Well, judging by the tone control, I will need to take off like 10% or so. It's not that much. They didn't take a whole lot off of these old controls. It's not like a half round control by any means. Maybe 15%, if that. I'll just use a flat file to do that. I'm not sure what this is made out of. If it's steel or it's tin plated brass or what. It's not aluminum, I don't think. Feels a little denser than that. I carefully marked it using the tone control for reference, used a Dremel cutoff wheel, put some paper towels down around because I knew lots of debris would go flying that I don't want to get into the radio. And you know, I still don't know what metal it is. It's not brass. Maybe it is some type of aluminum alloy. I don't know. Saw a couple sparks, but not a whole lot. I mean, I suppose it could be steel, but like a mild steel. Anyway, I will take this here file and clean up a little burr left from using the Dremel, and then proceed to start flattening it down to accept the Philco knob. There we go. I just had to take down a little bit. Now before putting the knobs on the shafts, I've been dabbing a little bit of grease on them, just some general purpose grease so that the knobs aren't so hard to get off in the future. Inside the knobs there's a bit of spring steel. These are a bit corroded. They were kind of hard to get off in the first place. Not quite that deep. There we go. Cool. And yeah, with that extra torque I get from the knob being on there, it works just fine. Actually, just about the same feel as the tuning knob. Great, awesome. So, I am very glad to get that task done finally. Now, let's switch gears a little bit. Now back to the speaker I would like to use in the Philco 90. This is the type of speaker it came with originally. Unfortunately, this has an open field coil. This forms an electromagnet. There's a smaller, much smaller coil called the voice coil that's wrapped around a form beneath this that sits inside that magnetic field created by the field coil, and that connects up to the output of the audio amplifier. And as that magnetic field varies inside of this fixed magnetic field, it makes the speaker cone move in and out. Alright, so the field coil is open. I've unwound by doing this, or by pulling on the loose end, and it breaks off. I've taken maybe 20% off. I have not found the break yet. I've basically given up hope, because at this point, even if I did find the break, I'd have to splice in new wire and then do this for a long time. This is very thin wire. There are many thousands of turns on it. So I want to replace the whole thing. Unfortunately, this is press fit together. There's a piece of metal running down the center of that coil of wire. That's why I can't get it out. The older speaker had a nut on the end. You could take it apart quite easily. This, no. Well, I got to pound that out. In order to do that, I need to take the cone out. In order to do that, I Need to take the screws off around the perimeter, and ideally the cone would lift out, but it's probably going to be glued down with some type of hide glue or something. Usually acetone will eventually soften it up, so I'll try doing that. Take out all these screws first. Hope I get lucky. I got to take this one out too. There is a small cardboard tube glued in around here, and that thing called the spider offers some resistance to the magnetic field as it fluctuates in and out, and this outer surround is corrugated so the whole thing can flex. But compared to a modern speaker, it's quite stiff. It's also rather fragile. There's already a tear in it and a slight dimple, so I want to be really, really careful. This is really old paper. It's very dried out, very crunchy. Well, I'll start out doing the simple thing, which is to take all the screws out and go around the edge. Sure, I can use a razor blade to help loosen that up, and acetone between the two, hopefully get it all out. I have to remember to unsolder these two wires. There are two thin, flexible wires going down to that voice coil. I think you can get a peek of it down in there. This whole assembly should lift out, which will leave us with a metal frame, and then it's a matter of, well, I need to pound on it. One issue with that is this is heavy cast metal, this is thinner metal. I don't want to just do this and then go pounding on this because I don't want to have this cave in, but perhaps I can do it from the other side. Somebody online who did this talks about putting it up on 2x4s and doing it, so I'm thinking maybe he put a 2x4 on either side and balanced it like this and whacked it out down the center. I think the pole piece has internally threaded for this screw, and I may need to put some type of something like a socket from a socket wrench over that, so the hollow piece will protect that threaded part, and then whack it a few times and hopefully knock it out, and then we can put our new wire on and then do the reverse to put it all back together. In an ideal world, that new spool of wire I got would just fit right over that pole. I wouldn't have to wind anything around. That seems really unlikely. Let's see, here it is. Yeah, I can already tell it's shorter, so yeah, I'm not going to be able to just drop that in. Let's see if you can compare the diameter of the wire while I've got it out. Boy, it sure looks awfully similar. Yeah, I mean, I'd say they're the same gauge. If not, it's so close it shouldn't make much difference. Yeah, so once I get all that out, I will have to start winding it and be very careful not to break this wire as I'm doing it. Alright, let's get to it. Take out the spider screw first. That's in there pretty tight. And now we go around the rim. So why do I care so much about saving this speaker? Well, one, it's the speaker that's supposed to go with this radio, meaning it has the correct field coil, DC resistance, and AC impedance, and likewise for the voice coil. Also, the mounting holes, 4 of them around the outside, will line up with the cabinet. I'm not sure if they do for the Type 20 speaker I have. Also, I just want to see if I can. I've never rewound a field coil before. So in keeping with the spirit of this being a super involved, detailed project, let's do a speaker. I am not that well versed, don't have that much experience with speakers. Done a little bit of reconing. I can't say I enjoy it. patched up a bunch of cones, but never really from scratch. I did try doing one Philco speaker from scratch, where I used a modern type cone with kind of a synthetic surround, and it was too mushy. It really didn't work that well. I don't think the angle of it was quite right either. Nobody really makes cones quite like this anymore, so you're kind of stuck with. There are formulas online, there are patterns where you can figure out the depth, because you need to get the angle right, the depth from here to here, the outer diameter, the inner diameter. And you can cut it out of some heavy paper, you get some craft paper, and glue it up. Someday I would like to try that. Okay, now the big question is, how secure is this? Well, let me get a razor blade. I don't think it's actually held on all that tightly. We might get lucky here. I'm just going to try using a single edge razor blade. Yeah, so there's large sections between the screws. It seems like there's really not much holding it on. Maybe it's this outer piece that's separate and then the cone is still glued to the metal. Find that out shortly. Yeah, it's definitely held on there tighter where the screws were. I guess that's no surprise. So far, so good. It's all. Oh, I got lucky. Oh, the cone is loose, but I've done it with acetone in the past where you just have to keep soaking it. The stuff evaporates so quickly. It's tough to have it soften up the glue. Alright, so now the last big problem, I've had this happen once before too, is the center screw there on the spider is stuck. I think I have good news. I took some acetone and dabbed it just around the metal post in the middle there, and then carefully went around again with the tool for prying apart smartphones, and slowly applied pressure all around, and there we go. Popping it's out. I do need to disconnect the voice coil wires, so let me take care of that right now. It's easy enough to do. Just these two guys. I undid those two stranded wires, and now finally, carefully, let's get this out. Haha. Give me a chance to clean it up good too, and repair that little tear there. Alright, excellent. That was far less work than I feared it would be. Put that away for safekeeping, and clean dust bunnies and stuff out of this. So that's what we need to get out. See, there's little bits of metal down in there. Must be from when it was magnetized. So the voice coil sits inside that slot. So of course you can't take a hammer and bang on it from this side, or you ruin that. And on this side it's kind of recessed. So let's go for it. We got to knock that pole piece out. It looks to me like I have to whack from this side because it's larger in diameter on this side than this side. So I can't knock it that way. That's what I was thinking initially, is that I would take something like a socket and go over like that and whack on it and knock it out that way. But I can't, because it has to go this way. Now I can't whack on it this way because, well, it's level with this metal frame. So if I get a smaller socket, I think I'll need one slightly smaller than this, I can center it over that and whack away. And my one concern with doing that is if I was to just do this and wail on this, the whole thing can cave in because this isn't very thick metal. Well, certainly not compared to this. So I got to put something under there to provide some bracing. So this guy online said he used a 2x4, and yeah, I need to cut this down, but it does look like that's pretty much the right thickness, or very close. Yeah, I think, yeah, when you consider these, I think that is the right thickness. Now originally I thought that I would be taking this off and hammering out these rivets, but no, we can leave those in. So I'll cut this down, or try to find some scraps that are the right length and get it so I can put a piece of wood on this side and on this side and put it down and have that wood, you know, providing support, and then get a little bit smaller socket and start tapping. Now maybe, I don't know how hard I need to hit it. I'm assuming I don't need like a sledgehammer to just annihilate this thing. You know, we'll just try some light tapping and hopefully it'll start moving. Then when we're all done, we got to do the reverse and put the, you know, get the new Philco coil wound on there and get this pole piece back in there and have to tap it back in. And when we do that, we have to maintain this gap. It has to go in dead center. That gap is where the field coil, or sorry, the voice coil rides, and that is essential to keep centered and freely moving. And while I have it out, or even, well, now I definitely want to clean out all that debris. It's still kind of stuck. This must have gotten slightly magnetized over the years. Yeah, I feel just a slight bit of magnetism. Anyway, so I will get set up. Do this down in the basement on the concrete floor. I can take the abuse, and also while I've got it out, of course, can clean it all up nicely. Doesn't appear to be, well, there's a little bit of corrosion, but not much. I'll neutralize that in a few other spots. I don't think I'm going to go so far as to repainting it. Well, I did some more research in the Philco forum and found a thread that had photos, and yeah, you do whack it out from this side, or ideally go to a machine shop that's got a press and have them press it out. It was also recommended to just bite the bullet and take out these 3 press fit rivets to avoid damaging the frame, which I think I might have already just slightly tweaked a little bit, but it shouldn't be too hard to straighten out. Because with that out of the picture, you can whack on it more. The gentleman that did it, that posted the photos, used a ball peen hammer and a piece of metal stock and just kept at it, and it slowly, bit by bit, it started moving. So I am going to try to replicate his technique. Or, well, I'll take a quick look on the internet for any machine shops in the neighborhood. I know we got some welders. I don't know of any machine shops, though. Wish I'd come across that thread with pictures sooner, because there's definitely some good advice there. Turns out that popping these out is actually pretty simple. Just about done. Just using a nail set and a few firm, hard taps down the middle. got one left. Here's a look at them. Kind of interesting little fasteners. Sort of mild steel, I guess, and you hammer them in, so they're sort of like rivets. Sort of like, well, they're press fit rivets, I guess. I don't know what the exact name is, but these are coming out so well, I think I'll be able to reuse them. Let's just give this last one a tap or two. That's being stubborn. Okay, so here, this is the fender. I'll show you in a photo in a moment of what it looks online, but yeah, this whole piece needs to come out. And it's got to come out from this side. So here is what it looks like with the pole taken out. One solid piece of metal goes down the center. Might be some other good photos. There's a photo of it getting rewound. I hope to do something like that too. Throw a little jig together and use a drill. It'll greatly speed the process. And close-up of the pole piece. And that's it for photos. But just seeing that one photo made me feel better because now I know I'm on the right track. Surprisingly difficult to find information on how to do this. This is the only photo I've found anywhere on the entire internet in the world showing this speaker with the pole taken out of the field coil.